Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And Ted Bannock is not joining us, not because he doesn't love us, but because we're just so everybody knows, we're recording this over the Christmas holidays, and we all know that scheduling can be crazy. And if you don't know, we also record these in a bunch. So we sit down and we record, 4 or 5 or 6 episodes all together. And Ted couldn't join us for this block. But you know who could join us for this block, right? Our patrons. We love our patrons. And if you're interested in becoming a patron of the show, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/cardtalk2018 and sign up, and we appreciate any dollar amount to help keep the lights on. And this episode, we'd like to thank Daniel David Joseph from Three's Company. Joseph Forster is an amazing advocate for the game and for the community. So Joseph, we love you, my friend. And then Kyle, Lewis, Mike, Dominic, Phil, Rob, Robert, and Sean. So thank you to all those patrons. So
yes, thank you.
So, and Grant, we decided, not because of anything other than kind of maybe New Year's resolution 2020, to just look at some of the core cards as new players are posting in the Facebook group that they just bought the game and are looking for ideas. We thought it's good to go back and revisit some of the core cards, and we haven't done all the core cards by any stretch of the imagination. So let's take a look at some of these core set cards, and we've already done a couple episodes with them. And there's some that have already in our catalog. Some of the very first cards that we talked about. If you want to hear some rough podcasting, go back to some of those first few episodes where we didn't have our groove down. But we saved some of the better cards for later on in the series, and it's kind of strange. Who would have thought 2 years later we still have cards to talk about, and we're still on air? And not only that, we have patrons that are paying us money to do this stuff. Like,
I always knew we would have cards to talk about, but whether or not we'd be doing it was another matter.
Right. But I love it. It's 2 years of pretty awesome stuff. So
definitely.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that Ted can't join me for this, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily feel bad about Ted not joining us. I mean, I love Ted, but a lot of these cards, it's not like there's tricks and tips and stuff for using them, especially today's card. So what's today's card?
Today's card is the one-cost tactics event, Feint. It reads combat action. Choose an enemy, engage with a player. That enemy cannot attack that player this phase.
So what do you think?
Overall, brilliant.
Brilliant. Great. Should we rate this card? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's get on with
it.
But no, it cancels the attack. I mean, in a tactics deck, this is one of my core staples of card. It goes into every tactics deck I build because of the fact that cancel an attack, even if you're running a heavy defense deck with either Grimbeorn the Old or Beragond, that cancel an attack for if you're running a multiplayer could save your partner's life.
Yeah, it can save anybody's life. And I think that this is also a card that plays solo, 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, it doesn't matter. It's not unique, so you can put as many of these cards in your deck as you want. Up to 3. You know what I mean? Like
it's that whole Test the Will scenario again.
Right.
You never get one.
Right, you put 40 of them in your deck and you still don't draw one. But like, I think that Feint is just an amazing. This is when you talk about core set staples, whether you're new to the game or whether you've been around for 4, 5, 10 years, doesn't matter. This is a card that you will always use or think about using. There's no reason to not think about using Feint in any deck that you build. even if you're going to use some of the substitutes that work like Feint does, which is like feigned voices, which is the Sylvan equivalent, there's still reason to use Feint. There's only one weakness that I can say that Feint has, and that's that you can't use it except in the combat phase. So there's a lot of not a lot, but there's a good number of enemies in the scenarios, especially the later scenarios, that attack outside of the combat phase. They'll make as soon as you engage them, they'll make an attack, or at the end of the combat phase. Okay, so there's a ruling that's saying the end of the phase is not in the phase. So as a combat action, if something's making an attack at the end of the phase, I'm not sure if you're actually in the phase. But the point is that with the exception of that small little limitation, this card is gold. There's even if you're not bringing a tactics hero, if you have a way of generating tactics resources, you may want to think about really bringing this card and using it.
So, ways of generating tactics resources.
Right, Song of Battle. I get Song of Battle.
Yep. Use the Song of Battle. That's probably the most primary way of generating a tactics resource.
Good Harvest.
Yeah. Although why you would want to waste a Good Harvest on a Feint is beyond me, but...
Well, I mean, if it's going to save your hero, you're going to use a Good Harvest.
Yeah, but usually if you're sticking a Good Harvest in, it's going to be something more than just for a Feint.
Oh, I totally agree, but you can use...
But yeah, you can use a Good Harvest. But you get 3 of these in your deck, and say you've got a 4th attack that you can't deal with. Hammer would be a good way of recurring 3 times for Feint, because with his ability, it's limited to 3 times a game now that he can recur a single event.
Right.
The Book of Eldercar, which is the tactics attachment from the encounter Amundin, allows you to discard the Book of Eldercar to play any event card in your discard pile as if it were in your hand, then place the event on the bottom of your deck. So essentially, with Hammer and with the Book of Eldercar, that goes up to roughly 9 times you can play the Feint in a game.
Right, and that's without even really trying. That's with the low-hanging fruit in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like it's real easy to put a Book of Eldercar in and use Hama. You know, like, okay, there you go. You know,
that's because without trying to think about how to recur it.
Right. Well, and just so that we're clear, let me just tell you that a Good Harvest allows you to pay for any event in any sphere when it's named. So if you name tactics, you not only can play Feint, but you can also play other tactics events in here. It's not just a one-time deal.
Yeah, it's for the phase.
It's for the whole phase, and it's any of those cards. So
and it doesn't just have to be events. You can play allies or attachments if you're doing it during the planning phase.
Right. So, but if you're going to use it to play Feint, you're going to use that action windows to play other.
So, for example,
tactics.
You could play Feint and then attack, and then play Hammer or Goblin Cleaver to gain a
to get that resource match, right? Actually, I don't know if it doesn't give you the resource match. It only allows you to spend resources.
Yeah.
So Feint, Foe Hammer, and Goblin Cleaver just are 0 cost cards, I think. So all the Good Harvest stuff aside, let's get back on track here. Do you see an instance where, when you're running tactics, that you don't run Feint in the deck?
Let's see.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
where you're going into Fangorn, where you have those trees, the Huons that don't attack you, they just make your life miserable.
Oh.
But
still, like, you still want the Feint just in case, because there's other things in that scenario that beat you. Like,
it depends on the quest. If I think that I'm not going to be dealing with like having a real combat where there's big enemies going to come down and crush me or crush me partner, I might just sideboard it. But it's always there just in case.
I don't know. The other thing about this that's totally crazy is it's choose an enemy engaged with a player.
Yeah.
Like, so let me make sure. This was something that I screwed up when I was playing the game at the beginning, is that when you play Feint, what you have to do is you have to make sure you deal out all the shadow cards and you go through. Then you play Feint. So the shadow card is gets just discarded without triggering. So
Yes.
the enemy still gets the shadow card, and then in the action window, previous to the attack, then you get to.
Yes, that's correct.
So I mean that's. Here's the other thing. Thinking so again, we're doing this because there's core cards that really are just really really good to talk about. Like think about all the core cards that this helps you. You can the good old buddy, your hill troll. You get the hill troll, you can feint the hill troll and help you get set up for one more round. You can feint a Nazgul.
Yeah, you can feint Nazgul or Dol
right? So when you think about all those big bad guys, and this is true through the whole length of the game, there's some cards are immune to player card effects, but a lot of them aren't. And a lot of them can be feinted. You can dodge. Woo! You can dodge that attack. That was me. Grant can't see me right now, but that was me dodging the attack. So, like, I would say that Feint is probably, when you have just the core set, one of the best cards. And then when you have other scenarios, is still one of the best cards.
Oh, definitely. No two ways about it.
The one thing, I want to say this, and then I'll let you continue. But the one thing that I want to warn new players about when you have Feint, it's okay to play Feint and have a tactics hero, but don't get suckered into playing that introductory tactics deck, because that deck is very hard to beat much with. So you may want to have the tactics resource generation to kind of play Feint and maybe a couple of the other attachments, and then you can choose one of the tactics heroes that you like, Gimli maybe, or Legolas or Thalon. I don't know. Anyways, but I would not use this as an indication that you want to play that core set 30 card deck right out of the box. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
Right. Just on a side note, I know you're not heavy into the lore of Lord of the Rings, but we mentioned the Tome of Eldacar.
Right, the Book of Eldacar, which recurs an event card in your discard pile. Yeah.
Which is of the tactics sphere.
Are you going to tell me who Eldacar is?
I am indeed.
Oh, I love it.
He is one of the kings of Gondor.
Oh.
One of the former kings of Gondor. He basically lost power when Castamere, some basically dissidents in Gondor, sieged Osgiliath, and the Palantir was taken from the Tower of Stone. The loss of that Palantir at Osgiliath.
Right, okay.
And Castamere then took power, claimed his throne, and had Eldacar's son, Ondil, put to death.
Oh.
Eldacar basically fled to Ravanian, and then gathered his force for about 10, 15 years. I can't remember exactly how long he was there, and then went back to basically reclaim Gondor.
And Grant, this is why you will always have a place on this podcast.
And he roughly lived for 235 years, which shows the lifespan of the Dunedain, basically the Dunedain,
right,
at that point, because they weren't separate from the Gondorian people then.
Right.
They were one people. He's a blood of old Numenor. So, His death was in 1490. So,
1490.
yeah.
Isn't that when Columbus sailed the ocean blue? No, I'm
I'll
just
leave
kidding.
I'll leave that one for you, mate.
Right. Yeah. 1492 was when Columbus sailed the ocean
But,
blue. I'm
but
just kidding.
you get the point.
Yeah. He's not a very nice guy, though.
Well, Eldecor was fine. It was Castamere that
Oh,
wasn't.
Castamere, right, yeah. And there's no book of Castamere, so...
Well, not yet.
yeah, right. Well, I assume with only 5 more adventure packs to go, we're probably not going to see a book of Castamere or anything.
Well, we'll never know. We might get an evil campaign coming soon.
Yeah, well, they're all evil here at the end. But I think, as we wrap up the show, I just think that Feint is an amazing thing, and its only limitation is combat action. And I'm not that that's a horrible limitation at all. So, but do you think we should ring this guy?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So, for anybody who doesn't know or is new to the podcast, we rank these cards on a scale from 1 to 10. It's a highly arbitrary yet scientific system. And if we rate a card 1 ring, that means that's the one card to rule them all. And if we rate it 10 rings, that means we throw it back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. So, Grant, what do you think of Feint?
I think it's an amazing card, and I still use it to this day. I'm going to give it 1 ring. It is probably one of the best tactics events going.
And for all the things that I said in the lead in to the card rating, I have to give it 1 ring too. It's a core set staple. It's always going to be good, and it's always going to be a card that anybody on the table will always want to see. So, a 1 ring for me. So, everybody, join us again as we talk about more cards from the game. And have a great week. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.